I remember the day I first laid eyes on Sarah. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind that makes you believe in love at first sight. She was sitting on a park bench, her laughter mingling with the rustling leaves, and I was captivated. Our relationship blossomed quickly, fueled by shared dreams and whispered secrets. We married within a year, convinced we were destined for a lifetime of happiness. But as I sit here now, pen in hand, I can't help but wonder if I was merely a character in her carefully crafted story. In the beginning, our life together felt like a fairy tale. We shared everything, our hopes, our fears, our favorite pizza toppings. I trusted her implicitly, believing that our bond was unbreakable. But as the months turned into years, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. It started with small things, the way she would glance at her phone, her laughter that seemed a little too forced, and the late nights at work that became more frequent. I brushed them off at first, attributing them to the stress of her job as a marketing executive. After all, who wouldn't be overwhelmed by deadlines and client demands? But then came the first lie. It was a Friday evening, and I had planned a cozy dinner at home. I had even picked up her favorite wine, hoping to rekindle the spark that had dimmed over the months. When I asked her about her day, she hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine. "Just the usual," she said, but the way her voice trembled sent a chill down my spine. I pressed her for details, and she stumbled over her words, fabricating a story about a last-minute meeting with a client. I could feel the unease settling in my stomach, a gnawing sensation that something was off. As the weeks passed, the signs became harder to ignore. Sarah's phone buzzed incessantly, and she would often excuse herself to take calls in another room. I caught her deleting messages, her fingers flying across the screen with a nervous energy that made my heart race. I tried to confront her, but each time I did, she would dismiss my concerns with a wave of her hand, her laughter ringing hollow in my ears. "You're being paranoid," she would say, and I would retreat, questioning my own instincts. It was during one of those moments of doubt that I made a decision that would change everything. I would document her lies. I needed proof, something tangible to hold on to as the ground beneath me shifted. I bought a small notebook, its pages crisp and empty, waiting to be filled with the truth. I started recording everything, the dates, the times, the conversations that felt off. I noted the little things, the way she would flinch when I touched her arm, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. Each entry felt like a dagger to my heart, a reminder of the trust that was slipping through my fingers. I felt like a detective in my own life, piecing together a puzzle that I never wanted to solve. My emotional state was a whirlwind of confusion and betrayal. I loved her, yet I felt like a stranger in my own home. The laughter that once filled our space was replaced by an oppressive silence, and I found myself questioning every moment we shared. As I gathered evidence, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, balancing between love and despair. My anxiety grew with each passing day, the stakes rising higher as I delved deeper into her web of deceit. I would watch her, studying her every move, searching for the truth hidden behind her carefully constructed facade. There were moments when I almost confronted her, when the urge to scream out my suspicions clawed at my throat. But I held back, knowing that I needed to be certain before I unleashed the storm that had been brewing inside me. One evening, as I sat on the edge of our bed, the notebook resting on my lap, I felt a surge of determination. I had collected enough evidence to confront her, to lay bare the truth that had been gnawing at my soul. But just as I was about to rise, I heard the sound of her key turning in the lock. My heart raced as I quickly tucked the notebook under the mattress, my mind racing with the possibilities of what lay ahead. As she walked in, her smile bright and carefree, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep up this charade. The moment of truth was approaching, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. I was ready to unveil the evidence I had meticulously gathered, ready to confront the woman I once thought I knew. But for now, I would play the part of the unsuspecting husband, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth that had been hidden in plain sight. The days that followed my decision to document Sarah's lies felt like an eternity. Each morning, I would wake up with a knot in my stomach, the weight of my suspicions pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I would watch her as she prepared for work, her movements graceful yet mechanical, as if she were performing a well-rehearsed routine. The laughter that once echoed through our home had been replaced by a tense silence, and I found myself counting the minutes until she would leave, only to be left alone with my thoughts. I continued to gather evidence, my notebook becoming a repository of her deceit. I recorded every suspicious text message, every evasive answer, and every late-night excuse. I even began to track her whereabouts, noting the times she left and returned home. It was a meticulous process, one that consumed my thoughts and left me feeling like a ghost in my own life. I was no longer just a husband, I had become an investigator, a man on a mission to uncover the truth. One evening, as I sat in our living room, I overheard Sarah on the phone. She was speaking in hushed tones, her voice low and urgent. I strained to hear her words, my heart racing as I realized she was discussing plans for the weekend. "I can't wait to see you," she said, her tone dripping with affection. My stomach twisted in knots as I felt the ground beneath me shift once more. Who was she talking to? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more painful than the last. I grabbed my notebook and jotted down the details, my hand shaking as I wrote. The name of the person she was speaking to remained a mystery, but I was determined to find out. I needed to know who had taken my wife's heart, who had woven themselves into the fabric of our lives. The thought of another man made my blood boil, igniting a fire of rage and betrayal that I struggled to contain. The following day, I decided to take a different approach. I would follow her. It was a risky move, one that could blow my cover and expose my suspicions, but I felt I had no other choice. I needed to see for myself where she went and who she met. As she left for work, I slipped into my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I followed her at a distance, careful not to draw attention to myself. The drive was agonizing, each red light feeling like an eternity. I watched as she navigated through the city, her car weaving through traffic with an ease that made my heart race. I felt like a predator stalking its prey, my mind racing with questions and fears. Where was she going? Who was waiting for her? The answers eluded me, but I was determined to find out. After what felt like an eternity, she pulled into a quaint cafe on the outskirts of town. My heart sank as I parked a few spaces away, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. I watched as she stepped out of her car, her demeanor relaxed and carefree, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I felt a surge of anger as I saw her laugh at something on her phone, her smile lighting up her face in a way I hadn't seen in months. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I needed to gather more evidence, to see who she was meeting. I slipped out of my car and made my way toward the cafe, my heart racing with each step. As I approached, I spotted her sitting at a table outside, her back to me. I ducked behind a nearby tree, my pulse quickening as I waited for the inevitable. Moments later, a man approached her table. He was tall, with dark hair and an easy smile that made my blood boil. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I watched them greet each other with a familiarity that sent chills down my spine. They leaned in close, their laughter mingling with the sounds of the cafe, and I felt the world around me fade away. It was as if time had stopped, and all that mattered was the scene unfolding before me. I strained to hear their conversation, my heart pounding in my ears. "I missed you," the man said, his voice low and intimate. Sarah's response was muffled, but the way she smiled at him made my stomach churn. I felt like I was watching a scene from a movie, one that I had no control over, and I was powerless to stop it. As they continued to talk, I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I snapped a few pictures. I needed proof, something to hold on to when I confronted her. Each click of the camera felt like a nail being driven into my heart, a reminder of the betrayal that was unfolding before my eyes. I wanted to scream, to rush over and demand answers, but I knew I had to remain calm. I needed to gather as much evidence as possible before I confronted her. After what felt like an eternity, they stood up, and I quickly ducked behind the tree, my heart racing as I watched them walk away from the cafe, hand in hand. I felt a mix of anger and despair wash over me, a tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. I had seen enough. I had the proof I needed, and now it was time to confront her. As I drove home, my mind raced with thoughts of how I would reveal the truth. I could feel the tension building inside me, a storm ready to break. I had gathered the evidence, and now it was time to lay it all bare. The moment of truth was approaching, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. But as I pulled into the driveway, I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if there was an explanation for what I had seen? The doubt crept in, whispering insidiously in my ear. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the lies I had documented, the evidence I had collected. I couldn't let fear hold me back any longer. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding as I made my way to the front door. The moment of confrontation was at hand, and I was ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As I stood at the threshold of our home, the familiar scent of lavender and vanilla wafted through the air, a stark reminder of the life we had built together. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The warmth of the house felt inviting, yet I knew that the truth lurking within its walls was anything but comforting. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that awaited me inside. The door creaked open, and I stepped into the living room, the soft glow of the lamps casting a warm light over the space. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The sound of her voice, once a source of joy, now felt like a cruel mockery of the reality I had uncovered. I could see her through the open archway, her back turned to me as she chopped vegetables, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just behind her. "Hey, honey. How's your day?" she called out, her tone bright and cheerful. I forced a smile, my heart racing as I tried to maintain my composure. "It was fine," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I moved toward the kitchen, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I entered, I watched her for a moment, taking in the sight of the woman I had loved so deeply. She looked beautiful, her hair cascading over her shoulders, her laughter echoing in the air. But beneath that beauty lay a web of lies that threatened to unravel everything we had built together. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal, a fire igniting within me as I prepared to confront her. "Sarah," I began, my voice low and measured. She turned to face me, her smile faltering as she sensed the tension in the air. "Can we talk?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. She nodded slowly, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Of course." "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I could see the flicker of anxiety in her eyes, and for a moment, I hesitated. Should I reveal everything now, or should I wait for the right moment? But the weight of my evidence pressed down on me, urging me to act. "I've noticed some things lately," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Things that don't add up." Her eyes widened, and I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to gauge my intentions. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of fear. I took a deep breath, my mind racing as I considered how to approach the subject. I could lay out the evidence I had gathered, the late-night phone calls, the secretive texts, the man I had seen her with. But a part of me hesitated, unsure if I was ready to unleash the truth that had been festering inside me. I feel like you've been distant lately," I said, my voice softer now. "Like there's something you're not telling me." I watched her closely, searching for any sign of guilt or deception. For a moment, she looked taken aback, her expression shifting from surprise to defensiveness. "Distant? What are you talking about?" she replied, her tone sharp. "I've been busy with work, that's all. You know how demanding my job can be." I could feel the tension rising between us, the air thick with unspoken words. I wanted to press further, to demand answers, but I held back, unsure of how to proceed. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," I said, trying to defuse the situation. "But I can't shake the feeling that something is off." I watched as her expression softened, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I promise, there's nothing going on," she said, her voice earnest. "I love you, and I would never do anything to hurt you." Her words hung in the air, a fragile promise that felt both comforting and hollow. I wanted to believe her, to trust in the love we had shared, but the evidence I had collected weighed heavily on my conscience. I needed to know the truth, and I couldn't let her sweet words distract me from the reality I had uncovered. "Then why do I feel like I'm losing you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung between us, a chasm that seemed to widen with each passing moment. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, and for a brief moment, I thought I might break through the wall she had built around herself. "I'm here, aren't I?" she replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "I'm trying to make this work, but you need to trust me." I felt a surge of anger at her dismissal, the way she brushed aside my concerns as if they were nothing. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand the truth, but I knew that would only push her further away. "Trust is earned, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "And right now, I don't feel like I can trust you." The words hung in the air, a challenge that I knew would provoke a reaction. I watched as her expression shifted, her eyes narrowing as she processed my statement. "Are you accusing me of something?" she asked, her voice rising. "Because that's not fair. I've done nothing wrong." I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface, and I knew I had struck a nerve. But I also knew that I couldn't back down now. I had come too far to let her deflect my concerns. "I'm not accusing you of anything," I replied, my voice calm. "But I need you to be honest with me. If there's something going on, I deserve to know." The tension in the room was palpable, a charged atmosphere that crackled with unspoken words. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, and I knew that the truth was just within reach. For a moment, we stood in silence, the air thick with tension. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between the truth and the facade she had created. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between us, but I knew that the truth would have to come from her. "Fine," she said finally, her voice low. "If you really want to know, then maybe you should just ask me what you want to know." The challenge hung in the air, and I felt a surge of adrenaline as I prepared to confront her with the evidence I had gathered. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, the doorbell rang, shattering the tension that had built between us. We both turned toward the sound, the moment of truth slipping away like sand through my fingers. I felt a mix of frustration and dread as I realized that the confrontation would have to wait. "Who could that be?" Sarah asked, her expression shifting from anger to confusion. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I wondered if this interruption was a blessing or a curse. I knew that the truth was waiting to be revealed, but now it felt like we were caught in a web of distractions, the moment slipping further from our grasp. "I'll get it," I said, my voice steady as I moved toward the door. I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, the tension still lingering in the air. As I opened the door, I was met with an unexpected sight, a delivery man holding a bouquet of flowers, a smile plastered on his face. "Delivery for Sarah," he said cheerfully, holding out the flowers. My heart sank as I took in the vibrant colors, the romantic gesture that felt like a slap in the face. I glanced back at Sarah, who had stepped into the hallway, her expression shifting from confusion to surprise. "Flowers? For me?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. I felt a surge of anger as I realized that this was just another layer of deception, another distraction from the truth that lay beneath the surface. "Who are they from?" I asked, my voice low and steady. I could see the panic flicker in her eyes as she hesitated, her mind racing to concoct a plausible explanation. The moment of truth was slipping away, and I could feel the tension building once more. I don't know," she stammered, her voice faltering. "Maybe it's a mistake." I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had built was beginning to crumble. The delivery man stood awkwardly, waiting for a response, and I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "Just take the flowers," I said, my voice cold. "I need to talk to you." The delivery man handed her the bouquet, and I watched as she took it, her hands trembling slightly. The moment of confrontation was still within reach, but I could feel the tension shifting, the air thick with unspoken words. As I closed the door behind the delivery man, I turned to face Sarah, my heart racing as I prepared to confront her once more. The truth was waiting, and I was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. The bouquet of flowers sat on the kitchen counter, vibrant and beautiful, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing between us. I could see Sarah's fingers trembling as she arranged the blooms, her eyes darting nervously between the flowers and me. The moment of truth was upon us, and I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I had to push through the distractions, to confront her with the evidence I had gathered. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk about what's really going on." I watched as her expression shifted, the mask of calm she had been wearing slipping just a little. She took a deep breath, her shoulders tensing as she prepared for the confrontation. "Can't we just enjoy the flowers?" she replied, her voice laced with a forced cheerfulness that felt hollow. "It's a nice surprise." I felt a surge of frustration at her attempt to deflect the conversation. I wasn't going to let her sidestep the truth any longer. "No, we can't," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "These flowers are just another distraction, another lie. I need you to be honest with me." I could see the panic flicker in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had built was beginning to crumble. The tension between us was palpable, a charged atmosphere that crackled with unspoken words. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, the frustration of months of deceit boiling to the surface. I had been patient, I had tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but now it was time to lay everything bare. "Nothing? You think this is nothing?" I gestured toward the flowers, my heart racing as I prepared to reveal the evidence I had collected. "I saw you with another man, Sarah. I followed you to that cafe, and I watched you laugh with him, flirt with him. You told him you missed him." The words spilled out of me, raw and unfiltered, and I could see the shock wash over her face. "Wait, you followed me," she stammered, her voice rising in disbelief. "You were spying on me?" The accusation hung in the air, and I felt a mix of anger and hurt. I had done what I felt was necessary to uncover the truth, but now it felt like she was turning the tables on me. "I wasn't spying, I was trying to understand what was happening." I shot back, my voice rising. "You've been distant, and I had to know why. I had to know if my instincts were right." I could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between guilt and denial. She opened her mouth to respond, but I pressed on, unwilling to let her deflect the conversation any longer. "I have proof, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "I've been documenting everything, the late nights, the phone calls, the lies. I have pictures of you with him." I reached for my notebook, my heart racing as I prepared to lay everything bare. I flipped it open, my hand shaking slightly as I found the page filled with notes and observations. "Look at this," I said, thrusting the notebook toward her. "You can't deny it anymore. You've been lying to me, and I deserve to know why." I watched as she took the notebook, her expression shifting from shock to anger as she scanned the pages. I could see the color drain from her face as the reality of my words sank in. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice low and steady. "What's going on between you two?" I felt a surge of adrenaline as I prepared for a response, my heart racing as I braced myself for the truth. "I can't believe you would do this," she said, her voice trembling. "You have no right to invade my privacy like this." I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I refused to back down. I had come too far to let her deflect my questions. "Answer me," I shouted, my voice echoing in the small kitchen. "Who is he? What's going on?" The tension in the room was palpable, a charged atmosphere that crackled with unspoken words. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, and I knew that the truth was just within reach. "His name is Mark," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's a colleague from work." The words hung in the air, a bitter revelation that felt like a punch to the gut. I had suspected as much, but hearing her say it out loud made the reality of the situation hit me like a freight train. "And what? You've been seeing him behind my back?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. "How long has this been going on?" I could see the guilt etched on her face, the way her eyes darted away from mine as she struggled to find the right words. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice shaky. "We've been working closely together on a project, and it just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I processed her words, the betrayal cutting deeper than I could have imagined. Didn't mean for it to go this far? I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. You've been lying to me, Sarah. You've been sneaking around behind my back, and you think that's okay? The anger bubbled to the surface, a fire igniting within me as I struggled to contain my emotions. I'm sorry, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I was confused, and I didn't know how to tell you. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, the guilt and regret etched on her face. But it was too late for apologies, the damage had been done. Confused? I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You think that's an excuse? You've shattered my trust, and now you want me to believe that it was just a mistake? I felt a surge of anger as I struggled to process the betrayal, the weight of her lies pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. I know I messed up, she said, her voice trembling. But I love you. I never wanted to lose you. The words hung in the air, a fragile promise that felt both comforting and hollow. I wanted to believe her, to trust in the love we had shared, but the evidence of her betrayal loomed large between us. Love isn't built on lies, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. You've broken my heart, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you. The words felt like a dagger, piercing through the remnants of our relationship. I could see the pain in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had built was beginning to crumble. I'll do anything to make it right, she pleaded, her voice desperate. Just give me a chance to prove that I can change. I felt a mix of anger and despair wash over me, a tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. I had loved her, trusted her, and now I was left with nothing but the shards of a broken heart. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the moment pressed down on us, and I could feel the tension building once more. The truth had been revealed, but the path forward remained uncertain. As I stood there, the evidence of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air, I knew that the confrontation had only just begun. The storm was far from over, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The air between us crackled with tension, a storm of emotions swirling in the aftermath of Sarah's confession. I could see the tears glistening in her eyes, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on her shoulders. But as much as I wanted to reach out and comfort her, I felt a wall rising between us, a barrier built from the lies and deceit that had shattered our once happy home. I can't believe this is happening, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. You've been living a double life, Sarah. How could you do this to us? The words felt heavy on my tongue, each one a reminder of the trust that had been broken. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't change what had already happened. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, her voice breaking. It was just supposed to be a friendship, but then it turned into something more. I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. I could see the guilt etched on her face, the way her hands trembled as she clutched the bouquet of flowers. But her fear didn't excuse her actions, it only deepened the wound. Scared? I echoed, my voice rising. You think that's an excuse for lying to me? For sneaking around behind my back? I felt a surge of anger as I struggled to contain my emotions. You've betrayed my trust in the worst way possible, and now you want me to believe that it was just a mistake? I know I messed up, she pleaded, her voice desperate. But I love you. I never wanted to lose you. The words hung in the air, a fragile promise that felt both comforting and hollow. I wanted to believe her, to trust in the love we had shared, but the evidence of her betrayal loomed large between us. Love isn't built on lies, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. You've shattered my heart, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you. The words felt like a dagger, piercing through the remnants of our relationship. I could see the pain in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had built was beginning to crumble. I'll do anything to make it right, she begged, her voice trembling. Just give me a chance to prove that I can change. I felt a mix of anger and despair wash over me, a tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. I had loved her, trusted her, and now I was left with nothing but the shards of a broken heart. Anything? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. What does that even mean? You think I can just forget what you've done? You think I can just pretend like everything is fine? I could feel the anger boiling inside me, a fire igniting within as I struggled to contain my emotions. I know it's going to take time, she said, her voice softening. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I'll cut ties with Mark, I promise. I'll do anything to show you that I'm committed to us. The desperation in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her words were just another layer of deception. Cutting ties isn't enough, I said, my voice steady. You've already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I need time to think, to process everything that's happened. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the realization that the path forward was uncertain. But I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I needed to be rational, to think clearly about what I wanted. Please, she begged, her voice trembling. Don't give up on us. I love you, and I want to make this work. The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't ignore the betrayal that had shattered our relationship. I felt torn between the love I had for her and the pain of her deceit. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the moment pressed down on us, and I could feel the tension building once more. The truth had been revealed, but the path forward remained uncertain. As I stood there, the evidence of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air, I knew that the confrontation had only just begun. The storm was far from over, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Maybe we need some space, I suggested, my voice steady. I need time to think about everything that's happened. The words felt like a lifeline, a way to create distance between us while I processed the whirlwind of emotions that had engulfed me. Space, she echoed, her voice trembling. You can't be serious. We can't just walk away from each other like this. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, the fear of losing me pushing her to desperation. But I knew that I needed to take a step back, to gain clarity in the chaos. I'm serious, I said, my voice firm. I need to figure out what I want, and right now, I don't know if that includes you. The words felt like a knife, cutting through the remnants of our relationship. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had built was beginning to crumble. Please, don't do this, she begged, her voice breaking. I'll do anything to make it right. Just give me a chance. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I processed her words, the betrayal cutting deeper than I could have imagined. I can't, I said, my voice steady. I need time to think. The weight of the moment pressed down on us, and I could feel the tension building once more. The truth had been revealed, but the path forward remained uncertain. As I turned to leave the kitchen, I felt a mix of anger and despair wash over me. I had loved her, trusted her, and now I was left with nothing but the shards of a broken heart. The confrontation had been painful, but it was only the beginning of the reckoning that lay ahead. I stepped into the living room, my heart racing as I tried to process everything that had just happened. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, the weight of the moment pressing down on my shoulders. I needed to think, to gather my thoughts and emotions before I made any decisions. As I sank into the couch, I felt the tears welling in my eyes, the pain of betrayal cutting deeper than I could have imagined. I had trusted her, believed in our love, and now I was left with nothing but the remnants of a shattered relationship. The storm was far from over, and I knew that the path forward would be fraught with challenges. But I also knew that I couldn't let her lies define me. I had to take control of my own narrative, to reclaim my power in the face of betrayal. The reckoning was just beginning, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The days that followed our confrontation felt like an eternity. I had retreated into myself, the weight of Sarah's betrayal pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. I spent hours lost in thought, replaying our conversations, analyzing every word, every gesture. The house felt empty, the silence deafening, and I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. Sarah had given me space, as I had requested, but I could feel her presence lingering in the air, a constant reminder of the love we once shared. I had seen her a few times, her eyes pleading for forgiveness, but I had kept my distance, unwilling to let her back into my heart without first understanding the full extent of her betrayal. One evening, as I sat on the couch, the notebook resting on my lap, I felt a surge of determination. I had documented everything, the late-night phone calls, the secretive texts, the man I had seen her with. I needed to confront her one last time, to lay everything bare and demand the truth. I couldn't let her manipulate the narrative any longer. I had to take control of my own story. I picked up my phone and dialed her number, my heart racing as I waited for her to answer. When she picked up, I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Hello," she said, her tone cautious. "Sarah, I need to see you," I said, my voice steady. "Can you come over?" There was a pause on the other end, and I could sense her hesitation. But finally, she agreed, and we set a time for her to arrive. As I waited for her to come, I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. I had spent days thinking about what I wanted to say, how I would confront her with the evidence I had gathered. I wanted answers, closure, and the chance to reclaim my life. I wanted to know if there was any hope for us or if it was time to let go. When Sarah arrived, I could see the tension in her posture, the way her hands fidgeted as she stepped into the living room. "Hey," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for any sign of what I was feeling. I gestured for her to sit, my heart pounding as I prepared for the final confrontation. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady. "I wanted to talk about everything that's happened." I watched as she nodded, her expression shifting from apprehension to determination. "I know I've hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "And I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted to betray your trust." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I pushed it down, reminding myself that I needed to stay focused. "I need you to be honest with me," I said, my voice firm. "I want to know everything. How long has this been going on with Mark? What exactly happened between you two?" I could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between guilt and the desire to protect herself. "It started a few months ago," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were working on a project together, and I thought it was just a friendship at first. But then, it turned into something more. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I got caught up in the excitement, the attention." I felt a surge of betrayal at her words, the realization that she had allowed herself to be swept away by someone else. "So you let it happen," I said, my voice low. "You chose to betray me instead of being honest about your feelings." "I know," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you, and I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could handle it, but it spiraled out of control." "Did you ever think about what this would do to us?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. "Did you ever consider how much you were risking?" "I did," she said, her voice breaking. "But I was in denial. I thought I could keep it separate, that I could have both worlds. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't ignore the pain of her betrayal. "You've shattered my trust, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "And I don't know if I can ever forgive you." "I'll do anything to make it right," she pleaded, her voice desperate. "I'll cut ties with Mark, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." I felt a mix of anger and despair wash over me, a tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. "You think cutting ties is enough?" I asked, my voice rising. "You've already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I need time to think, to process everything that's happened." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "But please, don't give up on us. I love you, and I want to make this work." The words hung in the air, a fragile promise that felt both comforting and hollow. I wanted to believe her, to trust in the love we had shared, but the evidence of her betrayal loomed large between us. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the moment pressed down on us, and I could feel the tension building once more. The truth had been revealed, but the path forward remained uncertain. As I sat there, the evidence of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air, I knew that the confrontation had only just begun. The storm was far from over, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I need to know if you're truly committed to making this work, I said, my voice steady. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it's going to take time and effort. I need to see that you're willing to put in the work. I will, she said, her voice earnest. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can change. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her words were just another layer of deception. I needed to take control of my own narrative, to reclaim my power in the face of betrayal. I can't promise anything right now, I said, my voice steady. But I'm willing to consider the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. It's going to take time, and it's going to be hard. But if you're truly committed, then maybe we can find a way forward. I am committed, she said, her voice filled with determination. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. As I looked into her eyes, I could see the sincerity in her gaze, the desperation to make things right. But I also knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The truth had been revealed, and now it was time to navigate the aftermath of betrayal. I need time to think, I said, my voice steady. But I'm willing to give us a chance. Just know that it won't be easy. I understand, she said, her voice softening. Thank you for giving me a chance. As she left that evening, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. The path forward was unclear, but I knew that I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. The storm was far from over, but I was determined to face it head-on, to uncover the truth and rebuild what had been broken. In the days that followed, I focused on myself, taking the time to process my emotions and reflect on what I truly wanted. I sought support from friends and family, leaning on them as I navigated the complexities of my feelings. I knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it, to reclaim my narrative and find my way back to a place of healing. As I moved forward, I realized that the truth had set me free. I had uncovered the lies, faced the betrayal, and emerged stronger on the other side. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the power to shape my own destiny.